You... You made the White Walkers.
We were at war. We were being slaughtered. Our sacred trees cut down. We needed to defend ourselves.
From whom?
From you.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones and a Song of Ice and Fire theory video. Today I want to talk about several different characters, but this theory mostly revolves around Bloodraven and the Children of the Forest. Some of the things I will say aren't exactly original, however, I feel like I have some new things to add to this idea. By the time I get to the end of the video, most of you will think I have lost my damn mind, and maybe I have. But today I want to take you deep into the murky waters, out into the abyss that is covered in the thickest of tinfoil. Before I get started, I do want to preface this by saying I'm still not 100% sure this is true, but I feel like there is more than enough evidence to make a good case. When it comes to Bloodraven and the Children of the Forest, they may not be as innocent as they say. Their intentions and motives may be driven by a much darker force. I think Bloodraven is responsible for Bran Stark's injury at the Broken Tower. Jaime may have been the one to push Bran, but it was Bloodraven who influenced Bran to climb the tower at that exact moment. Bloodraven could not allow Bran to go to King's Landing and become a knight like he wanted to. He needed Bran to lose the use of his legs, that way he would need to find another purpose in his life, which ultimately led to Bran meeting Jojen Reed. Jojen was Bloodraven's puppet, and he made sure Bran went beyond the wall to meet Bloodraven. Jojen was used just like Bran was used, and as soon as Jojen got Bran to the cave, Bloodraven and the Children of the Forest allowed Jojen to die because he was no longer any use to them. Not only did they allow Jojen to die, but they may have even fed Jojen to Bran to enhance his powers. There is a lot to unravel here in order for all of this to make some sense, so I will need to start at the very beginning, then work my way up to Bloodraven's death. There are some questions I think we need to be asking ourselves. What if we find out Bloodraven and the Children of the Forest were working with the Night King? What if they were only using Bran because they needed him to help get the Night King south of the wall? Maybe the Children of the Forest and Bloodraven were lying this whole time. Now I know this may sound crazy because we've seen the Children of the Forest and Bloodraven die in the cave while trying to help Bran and Mira escape. But what if that was a setup? What if the Children of the Forest we saw in the cave were stunt doubles, and those bodies were being warged by the real puppet masters at the God's Eye, which is where the most powerful Children of the Forest are located, with the heart of the weirwood net. Now, if you're thinking about turning off this video because it sounds too ridiculous, just hear me out. Like I said, this might not be true. This might not be the case at all, but I have been thinking about this for a few days, and there are too many things that have happened that I'm still questioning when it comes to the Children of the Forest and Bloodraven's intentions and motives. Let's go back to the very beginning when Bran Stark was pushed out of the Broken Tower's window by Jaime Lannister. Now, you could say Bran just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, or you could say this was Bran's destiny. But another thing you could say is Bloodraven manipulated the events to make sure this happened to Bran. I happen to think it was Bloodraven, and I will tell you why. Greenseers have the ability to see into the future, and they also have the ability to speak through animals. Bloodraven has this ability because he's getting his powers from the same source. There is a great quote from the World of Ice and Fire book that sums this up perfectly. In the Ancient History section it says, "Legend further holds that the Greenseers could also delve into the past and see far into the future. Not just into the future, but far into the future." Sept and Barth put forth that the Children of the Forest could speak with ravens, and could make them repeat their words. They could basically turn a raven into a parrot. This is something that Bloodraven does throughout the entire book series. Pretty much anytime you hear a raven speaking in the books, you can bet your ass that's Bloodraven speaking through the birds, foreshadowing some of the big events to come. Now, as we all know, Bran loved to climb all over the castle. He could move around like a monkey, and he climbed the Broken Tower often. It was actually one of his favorite things to do. What he really loved to do was climb the Broken Tower specifically because at the top of this tower there were crows, and Bran liked to feed them corn right out of the palm of his hand. In Bran's second chapter it says, "There were crow's nests atop the Broken Tower, where no one ever went but him, and sometimes he filled his pockets with corn before he climbed up there, and the crows ate it right out of his hand." And it basically says the crows never attacked him or tried to peck out his eyes. That was actually Bloodraven, and he wanted Bran to be comfortable, to encourage him to continue to do this. The last thing he wanted to do was scare Bran away. This was all part of his plan. He was grooming Bran, and he didn't even know it. Shortly after this is when Bran is pushed from the tower. It actually happens in this same chapter. As Bran falls and hits the ground, George R.R. Martin ends the chapter by writing something very interesting. This is what it says. Screaming, Bran went backward out the window into the empty air. There was nothing to grab onto. The courtyard rushed up to meet him. Somewhere off in the distance, a wolf was howling. Crows circled the broken tower, waiting for corn. Those last two sentences foreshadow two very important things. Bran's dire wolf was howling because this is to show their connection or bond with each other. But why would George end this pivotal moment by saying the crows were circling above, waiting for their corn? Bran was just pushed from a tower by the Queen's brother. And for all we know, Bran might be dead. But the last sentence of this chapter has nothing to do with what just happened. The writer is reminding us about the crows being there because they are responsible for this incident. Bloodraven manipulated Bran into climbing the tower at that exact moment to feed the crows corn. And as soon as he got up there, Bloodraven made sure Bran was caught because he knew what would happen next. Jaime or Cersei didn't just happen to see Bran in the window. Something happened that caused them to look up and see him there. Someone or something made a noise that caused them to look. But it wasn't Bran who made the noise. It was one of those damn crows. Bloodraven had them make a noise, that way Bran was caught. This is what it actually says as Bran is watching through the window. Bran saw her face. Her eyes closed and her mouth was open, moaning. Her golden hair swung from side to side as her head moved back and forth. But still he recognized the Queen. He must have made a noise, because suddenly her eyes were open, and she was staring right at him. Then she screamed. Bran doesn't remember making a noise. In the moment, he thinks to himself, I must have made a noise because she suddenly looked right at me. He doesn't say, I made a noise, he just assumes that he did. However, I do not believe it was Bran who made the noise. I believe it was Bloodraven. Let me show you another quote that proves Bloodraven was using those crows. After Bran is pushed from the tower, he's in a coma for many weeks, and when he's in this coma, Bloodraven visits him in a dream sequence, and this is what happens. The voice was high and thin. Bran looked around to see where it was coming from. A crow was spiraling down with him, just out of reach, following him as he fell. Help me, he said. I'm trying, the crow replied. Say, got any corn? That very last line proves it was Bloodraven. Say, got any corn? That's exactly what the crows like to eat at the top of the broken tower. Now the first phase of Bloodraven's plan is complete. He found Bran, and he made sure he never grew up to become a knight, because he needs him north of the wall. And Bran never would have went if he still had the use of his legs. Now that Bran is crippled, Bloodraven is initiating phase 2. Now he's literally inside Bran's head, encouraging him to follow his orders. The next thing Bloodraven does is send Jojen Reed green dreams. He needs Jojen to deliver Bran to him. After all, Jojen Reed was the perfect man for the job. Not only does Bran know the Reeds are loyal bannermen to the Starks, but Bran was also kinda looking for a friend, because he hated the fact that some of the Freys were being fostered at Winterfell. Jojen was nearly the same age, and he helped Bran find a new purpose in life. He helped Bran forget about using those legs. Don't worry, because one day you will fly. All you have to do is follow me. You want to escape this reality of being a cripple? I can help you. This is exactly what Bran was looking for, now that he can no longer walk or run, or even ride horses the way that he used to. Things are all going according to Bloodraven's plan. The crazy thing is, Jojen knew he would be dead by the time he completed his mission. Jojen could also see bits of the future because of the green dreams he was being sent by Bloodraven and or the children. He knew he would die, and he even knew Winterfell would be seized. The sea is coming here, Bran said. Jojen saw it in a green dream. Ale Bailey is going to drown. Maester Luwin tugged at his chain collar. The Reed boy believes he sees the future in his dreams, Sir Roderick. I've spoken to Bran about the uncertainty of such prophecies, but if truth be told, there is trouble along the stony shore. Jojen was right. This particular green dream was accurate. Even though Jojen knew his own fate, he went along anyway, And who do you think was making sure of this? Who the hell in their right mind would go to this cave if you knew you were going to die when you got there? I know I wouldn't unless someone was forcing me in some way. We never get to find out everything Jojen knew because as soon as he delivered Bran to the cave, Jojen was no longer needed, so he was killed. There was no reason Jojen had to die the way that he did. Bloodraven knew exactly what was going to happen outside of that cave, and he let it happen anyway. Think about what he says when he meets Bran for the first time.
My brother, he led us to you, and now
He knew what would happen. From the moment he left, he knew, and he went anyway.
How do you know?
I've been watching you. All of you. All of your lives. With 1,000 eyes and one.
He says, I've been watching you. All of you, all of your lives, with 1,000 eyes and one. He can see everything. Not only that, but he has ravens or crows everywhere, and he's looking through all of their eyes. You know Bloodraven was watching them during their entire journey there. He knew they were approaching the cave. The children should have been out there waiting for them to make sure they got inside safely. But when do the children decide to help? Not until Jojen is stabbed multiple times. They sat there and watched and didn't help until Bran was actually in trouble. They let Jojen die, and in the books, it is theorized that they actually fed Jojen to Bran. Look up the theory called Jojen paste if you want to learn more. Think about how twisted that is. Jojen was Bran's friend, and they made him drink this weird paste that was most likely Jojen's blood, and only the old gods know what else was in there. All you have to do is look at the floor of the cave to know the Children of the Forest and Bloodraven have been up to some creepy shit for a very long time. There are bones and skulls everywhere. And those aren't bones from any of the whites either. The whites have never made it that far inside of the cave. They explode right at the entrance, and Bloodraven's lair is much farther back than that. Now that he has Bran inside of his cave, he can initiate his final phase, which I would like to call Operation Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Bran Stark may have just been another pawn in Bloodraven or the Children of the Forest game of chess. There is a very interesting quote by Melisandre that has always made me question Bloodraven's true intentions. When Melisandre was looking into the flames, she was thinking about Beyond the Wall and how the enemy was growing stronger. And should he win, the dawn will never come again. She wondered if it had been his face that she had seen staring out at her from the flames. No, surely not. His visage would be more frightening than that, cold and black and too terrible for any man to gaze upon and live. The wooden man she had glimpsed, though, and the boy with the wolf's face. They were his servants, surely, his champions. Melisandre was looking into the flames and wondered if she had seen the Great Other, the White Walkers or their leader. She knew it wasn't their face, but she saw the wooden man, which is Bloodraven because he's stuck in the tree. And she saw him with Bran Stark. Melisandre's thinking they are working for the others. They are his servants, his champions. This is a fascinating piece of information. Now we know Melisandre has been wrong before, however I don't think that means we should disregard everything she sees. I don't think it's that crazy to think Bloodraven may be a servant of the Night King. We know Bloodraven works with the Children of the Forest, and we know the children were the ones who created the Night King in the first place. Maybe they've been lying to us this whole time. They say they're trying to stop the Night King, but how do we know they actually are? How do we know for a fact that Bloodraven didn't use Bran to help get the Night King south of the Wall? Do you remember what Old Nan told Bran at the very beginning of the story?
Don't listen to it. Crows are all liars.
She told Bran, do not listen to crows. They are all liars. We have no idea what Bloodraven may have been doing when he was inside of the weirwood net for all of those years. Another thing that I found interesting is when Bran goes into the weirwood net by himself. Before Bran grabs the tree, he looks at Bloodraven and he notices his eyes are closed. Bran even throws something at him and he doesn't move. Bran probably assumed he was sleeping, but maybe he was inside of the weirwood net. When Bran decides he's going to take a look for himself, he doesn't grab one of the branches that's right next to him. Instead, Bran crawls over to Bloodraven's tree and he grabs one of his branches. And somehow the Night King just happened to be there waiting for him. In my opinion, this felt like a setup. It was way too convenient. After the Night King touches Bran, he comes out of the vision in a panic, and somehow Bloodraven already knows the Night King touched him. Bran wasn't even sure for himself, but Bloodraven knew for a fact. Now how did he know, unless he already saw this event happen, or he was inside of the werewood net watching it happen as it unfolded. Bloodraven's eyes were closed when Bran threw the piece of bone at him, but maybe he was already in the vision watching from afar, or he set this up to happen. If he is the great other servant like Melisandre says, then this was all staged to happen to Bran. We know there is still going to be one big twist at the end of the series. The showrunner said there would be 3, and 2 already happened. The final big twist may reveal exactly what the hell's been going on between the Children of the Forest and the Night King. Sadly, Bran may suffer the most because of this. You also have to wonder if Bloodraven did actually hijack Bran's body. It appeared as if he was stuck in the tree, and I know if I was him, I would want to get out of that prison by any means necessary. There are a handful of quotes that make me think this is very possible. First, when Bran meets Bloodraven for the first time, he asks him if he will help him walk again, but he tells Bran no, you will never walk again, but one day you will fly. Now obviously this can mean many different things. Some people think it means he will fly through time, while others think it means he will warg a dragon. Or it could just mean he will fly by warging birds. But what if he meant that as Bran would become him, a newer version of the Three-Eyed Raven? He later tells Bran that the time has come. The time for you to become me.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
The time has come
The time for what?
for you to become me.
I know we have all noticed how Bran has changed ever since his final night in the cave. Basically, right at the same time Bloodraven allegedly dies. We see the Night King swing his ice sword and Bloodraven basically disintegrates. But what if he entered Bran's mind while Bran was still inside of the werewood net? Later, after they're rescued by Benjen, Mira says the Three-Eyed Raven is dead, but Benjen said he lives again. From here on out, Bran shows almost no emotions. When they get back to Winterfell, Mira tells Bran she's leaving and going home, but Bran has no interest in talking at all. Mira reminds Bran that her brother died for him, Hodor died for him, but still, Bran shows zero emotion. This prompts Mira to say Bran died in that cave.
Bran!
I'm not really. Not anymore. I remember what it felt like to be Brandon Stark. But I remember so much else now.
You died in that cave.
But what does that really mean? What if the writers are hinting at something much darker than we think? Bran even says that he's really not Bran anymore. Obviously, Bran has been through a lot, and he now knows a lot because he's pretty much downloaded the entire history of this world. But there may be several layers to these scenes. Some of Bloodraven's conscious may be inside of Bran.
Why did you help us?
Three-Eyed Raven sent for me.
The Three-Eyed Raven's dead.
Now he lives again.
And I also wonder if Bloodraven was actually being used by the Children of the Forest as well. When we see the Night King get created, the children had him tied up to the werewood tree in order to shove the dragon glass in his chest. When I look at Bloodraven all entangled in the tree, I can't help but get a similar vibe. I'm wondering if the Children of the Forest actually imprisoned Bloodraven in that cave and stuck him inside of the werewood root somehow. I mean, in the books, the werewood tree is literally growing through his eye socket, basically locking him in place. We know the Children of the Forest have no problem with killing. They created the Night King so he could wipe out the human race. Now, they say they were doing that to protect their lands and trees, but how do we know for a fact that they are telling the truth? The Children of the Forest are damn near extinct from what I can tell. There are barely any signs that they even exist except for the faces they carved into the trees. Men have taken over everything. Don't you think they would want some kind of payback? Could they be planning something big that we don't even see coming? We always hear the phrase, all men must die. What if that originated from the Children of the Forest, from the time they were at war with the First Men? Now we know the others eventually went rogue and the children had to team up with the First Men in order to stop the others from taking over. And that's when they signed the pact. Somehow the fighting stopped and the others went back north and the wall was built, but the children have also been living beyond the wall, in the same location as the others more or less. What if the Children of the Forest and the Night King became allies again? Both of them became races on the verge of extinction, while all the men got to live south of the wall and take over all of the lands. The Children of the Forest and however many White Walkers that were still alive were forced to live on the other side of the wall. I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to go back to their original plan of wiping them all out. If the children and men fought the others together, how the hell did the children end up on the wrong side of the wall? Don't you think this would piss them off? We know the men helped the children push them back into the lands of always winter, but maybe as punishment, they forced the children to live with their creation, the others. But over time, the children and the others planned to strike back and take back their lands for good, which ultimately led to them using Bloodraven and Bloodraven using Jojen to get the Bran, and so on and so forth. It was all a part of their plan to get the wall to come down so they can invade Westeros and take back what they feel is rightfully theirs. Now you might be asking yourselves, how are they allies when we saw one of the White Walkers kill one of the children in the cave, and Leaf blew herself up so Bran and Mira could escape? Maybe the Children of the Forest who are truly pulling the strings have to be at the God's Eye. That's where the main hub of weirwood trees is located. That's where this ancient pact was made. Now I'm not saying the Night King is going there, but the one true puppet master is most likely there. The leader of the Children of the Forest should be there amongst the sacred trees. They may have even recruited Howland Reed since many people already believe that's where he's at, and that could have also influenced Jojen Reed to help escort Bran to the cave. The children we saw die at the cave were sacrificial lambs. They died in order to gain Bran's trust, and our trust as a viewer. But the big twist will come in the end when we realize the children reignited their alliance with their creation, the White Walkers. Men have ruled for long enough. The true threat lies in the south, with one of the original races of this planet. It would also be really sad if in the end, Jon had to kill his brother Bran because his mind and body was inhabited by these creatures who were assisting the others, when all this time we actually thought they were trying to help Bran. I will say that there is a good chance that I'm wrong. At the beginning of the video, I said I'm still not 100% sold on this idea, but some things just don't add up to me. I don't understand why the Children of the Forest would be living on the other side of the wall where the White Walkers are when they supposedly helped man defeat them. Why would they then be banished to those terrible and dangerous lands unless they were punished for creating them in the first place? And if they were punished for doing this, something has caused the children and the others to become very active again. Let me know what you think about all of this down below. I know there is a lot to digest because I still haven't put all the pieces together myself because this is some complicated stuff, but I just had to get some of these thoughts out of my head. Anyways, I want to thank all of you for watching the video. I really appreciate you for coming along for the ride. Hopefully it wasn't too bumpy for you. Before I go, I also want to thank everyone on Patreon for supporting the channel. That truly means a lot to me. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.